Hello and welcome, I'm Frank from the City of Games, and today I'd like to teach you how to play the 1 to 4 player game Race to the Raft, where we play the role of the island cats who are surrounded by fire and must race across the island to get to the raft before they're entrapped by flames. This is a cooperative game where we're all going to be playing together. We're either all going to win or we're all going to lose. And this is a scenario-based campaign game with 81 scenarios. That means that each time you play, you can come back and play a different scenario that's going to give you a new puzzle, slowly introduce you to new rules, and then give you a score to see how well you're doing. So with that in mind, we're going to start with the first tutorial, and in this video you'll learn everything you need to know to play that tutorial. Open up the campaign book, turn to page 4, and in the top left hand corner you'll find first steps, the first scenario and the one we're going to use for this tutorial. You will notice that it has 4 large grey areas, and these represent the different island boards. You'll see that there are 4 large island boards and there are also 4 smaller island boards. In our tutorial scenario, we need 2 large grey areas, which means 2 large island boards, and then 2 smaller rectangular areas, which again means 2 smaller rectangular boards. You'll notice that we can use any of these, so I could use these, or I could use them like this. I can use them in any combination. These are the 2 that I've taken, and likewise for the top ones as well, I've chosen 2 at random. Keep in mind that these are all double-sided, and one side has a fire strip and the other side does not. You'll see we've got a fire strip and no fire strip. As you can see in our scenario, it shows that on the left hand side there is this dark line, which means that these 2 boards are both using the fire strip side. We've now set up our island, so I'm just going to bring these together and we're going to start adding other things. We're going to take our fire cards, we're going to take our location cards, and we're also going to take our raft cards. Fire cards, believe it or not, are covered in fire. Location cards have a number in the top left hand corner, and raft cards have a letter in the top left hand corner. For this scenario, you can see that we're using the raft card A. There are other cards and they're always double-sided, so keep that in mind whilst trying to find them. We're going to take A and we're going to place it down here as indicated. The other cards can now be discarded. Likewise, we can take our location and fire cards, and we're just going to start adding these to the island as indicated in the scenario setup. It doesn't matter which order you do this, but just keep in mind that everything needs to match up, and as long as you've done that, you'll be good to go. Again, any cards you don't use, these ones can simply be discarded, and for locations, we're going to need cards 3, 5 and 7. Note that there are 2 of each number. Sometimes you will be asked to use multiples of the same card, and again we've got the odd numbers on one side, the even numbers on the other side, so when you're searching for cards, do keep in mind that the backs are different to the front. We're going to finally place these down, and this is going to set up the final arrangement for our island. You can see that we have got 3 location cards. These represent the starting areas for our cats, and we're going to take matching cat figures and place them into any square with a cat icon. This one here has a green square area with the green cat icon, which means we're going to take a green cat and place it into that square. You can match them up with the icons or the colours, and you just need to make sure that every location card does have a matching cat on every square. Later location cards may have more than one. So our green, blue and orange cat are ready to go. The final things we're going to do is we're going to take the fire bag and put it to one side. If you haven't already done so, you should take all the fire tiles, put them inside the bag, give it a nice shuffle, and then just put it to the side. Of course, you'll only have to put them into the bag the first time you play because then they'll already be there. Finally, we're going to take the 4 pathway decks. These are represented by different symbols on the back. We have the square deck, the cross deck, the circle deck, and the triangle deck. Make sure you give each of these decks of cards a shuffle and put them where someone can reach. Outside of that, any other cards and tokens you'll be introduced to later, so you don't need to use those yet. We're good to go. Let's talk about winning and losing. We're going to win the game by getting all 3 cats from their starting locations onto the raft card. And we're going to lose the game at any point where we can no longer achieve that because our cats have been blocked off by fire. I'll show you how that happens in just a few minutes. So let's talk about cards. I'm going to just take one of these cards to show you how this works. A pathway card is made up of a 3x3 grid and will have 9 different coloured squares. These represent the different types of terrains that you can already see on our island. We're going to place these onto the island board to help our cats move. You see, our cats are quite stubborn. Believe it or not, cats don't always do what you want, and our blue cat is only going to move across the blue squares. Our green cat will only move across green squares, and our orange cat will only move across orange squares. There are also red and purple cats, but again, they're not in this first tutorial. So if this card was placed here, our cat would now have the ability to move all the way across to this square here. When you're placing a pathway card, you can rotate it and place it anywhere you like as long as it aligns with the grid. You don't have to connect it to a cat, you could put it over here if you want. The only rules are as follows. It can't be off the edge of the island. You can't place it on top of a cat. You can't place it over the raft, and you can't place it over fire. As long as you maintain those rules, you're good to go. And if you do have other cards in play, you can always place them on top of previous cards if you want to. So let's talk about the makeup of a round and how that works. The Race to the Raft is played over an unlimited number of rounds until you either win the game or lose the game. In each round, every player is going to draw cards, you're then going to play cards, and then you're going to reset the cats to allow you to move into the next round. So let's go through each of those steps. First up comes drawing cards, and each player is going to take 3 cards from the 4 decks. That means they could take 3 squares, or they could take 1 square, 1 circle, 1 triangle. Any combination they like, as long as they end up with 3 cards in their hand. When you're taking cards, you can't look at them until you've taken all of them, and all players will take them at the same time. It's important in this game that you never tell anyone what's on your cards and never show them to other people. So as you're selecting cards, you want to talk as a team about what cards you're probably going to take, but once you've taken them, that's it. It's your information and no one else is going to know. So, how do you know which cards you want to take? The back of each card shows how the colours within that deck are distributed. Let me explain. This deck here has about 1/3 as red, about 1/3 as blue, and then about 1/6 as orange and 1/6 as green. This means that all of the cards in this deck have a distribution of about 33% of being red squares. If you want red squares, this is a deck that you're going to want to choose from. It doesn't mean every card has red in it, but it does mean that 1/3 of the entire deck is red. Likewise, 1/3 is blue, but there's no purple because there's no purple on this deck. So if you want, say, green and blue, perhaps you're going to want to take the cross deck. If you want green and orange, perhaps you're going to take the square deck. In the first tutorial, it's fairly straightforward. You're not going to want to take circle and triangle, and you're going to want to probably have a mix of the squares and crosses. As you progress through the game, these decisions are going to become a bit harder. As a team, we've discussed, we're going to play 2 players and we're going to take 3 cards from square and our other player's going to take 3 cards from cross. So we're going to just take those 3 cards, give them to the players, and again, this information is now private for them. They can't share that information. There's also no turn order in Race to the Raft, so anyone can go. We've got our player with 3 cards here, we've got our player with 3 cards here, they're going to have a discussion, and then someone's going to play a card. The things that you can say are something is good or something is bad. For example, if these are our cards, I could say, I've got a really good blue card. I could say, I've got 2 really good green cards. I could say, I don't really have anything that's good for orange. So you're allowed to say things are good, you're allowed to say things are bad, you're allowed to say, I don't have any red, for example. But what you're not allowed to say is anything that will give another player an idea of exactly what's on your card. As an example, I can't say, I've got a blue T-shape, because straight away, you're going to understand what that means. I can't say, I've got 4 green squares on one card. I can't say that I've got a line of blue. Anything that allows them to visualize exactly what a part of the card looks like is a no. But good green, good blue, bad orange, absolutely fine. So our players are going to discuss who thinks they've got the best card. Someone's going to go first. There are two actions that you can play. You can either place a card onto the island, or you can discard a card to move a cat. So let's say that this player over here for the moment is just going to sit back, and this player over here has decided they're going to play a card. So we're going to look at our cards. We've decided, hey, we want to move the blue cat. So we're going to take a blue card and we're going to place it just like we showed earlier, starting to build up this pathway. The important thing is as soon as that player has been nominated to play, no one is allowed to speak. They're allowed to talk through what they're thinking, but no one could advise them. No one could give them a good idea. For example, if I was putting this card here and you were thinking, surely you want to connect it to this square. That's the problem. You can't tell me, and it's up to me to identify that. This game is all about discussing as a team what you want to do, and then empowering each player to make their own decisions without interruption. Once a pathway card has been played, then fire happens. So go to the bag, the same player, still without anyone being able to talk, put your hand in and take out a tile at random. Fire works very similarly to pathway cards. You can't place it over the raft. You can't place it over a cat. You can't place it over fire, but you can place it over anything else. However, the one difference in rule is it always has to be touching at least one edge of fire. This would be absolutely fine because these edges are touching. This would not be fine because there is no edges touching, diagonals do not count, and likewise this would be bad because it's not touching. So I'm now going to decide where I'm going to put this fire tile, and I'm thinking I'm going to put it up here out the way. That's the end of my turn. Everyone can start talking again and we can discuss. You can tell me, did I do something bad? Should I have put this card somewhere else? Was the fire bad? What should we do next turn? We're going to have another discussion and nominate another player to go. So this player could go again. They've still got 2 cards, or our other player could go. Now, let's assume that we're thinking we probably want to move our blue cat, and this player's looked at their cards and they've gone, you know what, this card's not very good. It's not great for orange, it's not great for green, we don't have purple, so I'm happy to get rid of this card. So I'm going to say, hey, I'll go next. I'll move the blue cat. I'll discard a card, put it into a discard pile, so let's just put that one there for now, and then I can move a cat. You can move a cat along its own coloured terrain as far as you like. The rules for movement are fairly straightforward. It always has to end on a different square to where it started. It's not allowed to go back over the same space. And obviously it has to stay within its own terrain type. Once the cat has moved, you'll then put it onto its side to show that it is exhausted. So it's cost us 1 card to move our blue cat. If we wanted to move that blue cat again this round, it would now require us to spend 2 cards. To move an exhausted cat costs 2 cards and not 1. So the first move is easier. Every subsequent move after that requires an additional card, always 2. But at the end of the round, these cats will then refresh and they'll only require 1 card again. So a couple of extra edge cases I want to cover. Whilst in this scenario we have only got 1 blue cat, let's assume that we're in a different scenario and we've got 2 blue cats. In this instance, a cat can move through a square of another cat, but it cannot finish in the same square. So if you do have multiple cats of the same colour, then they can cross over each other as long as they don't finish on that same space. Likewise, when we discard a card to move, that's absolutely fine, nothing else happens. But as we move more cats, we start to discard more cards, and we should put them so you can see how many cards have been discarded. As soon as a 4th card is added to the pile, these 4 cards then get removed from the game, and another fire tile gets placed on the board by whoever discarded that 4th card. So every 4th discarded card for movement will trigger 1 extra fire coming out. We're going to keep playing, we're going to keep discussing. You're going to play through all 6 cards in your hands, putting them down onto the board and then taking out fire and placing that fire onto the board, or discarding them to move. Keeping in mind that fire will always have to cover an area touching previously placed fire. And this is how you can lose, because if you place the fire in the wrong place and suddenly your cats are now blocked off by fire and cannot get to the raft, then you're going to lose the game immediately. But of course, once all of your cats are at that raft, you're going to win. Once all the players have played all of their cards, the round resets. Any cats that are on their side are now no longer exhausted, they stand back up, and you all then draw 3 more cards. We repeat that process until all the cats have made it to the raft, or until we're blocked off. And that's everything you need to know to play the first tutorial, so I hope this has helped. If you win, then you should go back to the campaign book and you should give yourself a big 5 points, placing it underneath the scenario in the scoring area to show that you've won and gained 5 points. If you lose, you should draw a circle and then it's up to you. Do you want to try again or do you want to move on to the next one? As you play through the entire campaign, so for the tutorial there are 4 scenarios, you'll then get a total score for that campaign that you're right at the top of the page, and that will tell you how well you've done. Later on, you'll learn about how you can lose points and other things, but for now it's nice and simple. 5 for winning or 0 for losing. I hope that helps, and feel free to move on to the next scenario. You should continue through the book in order, and let's see how far you can get. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below, and otherwise, I hope you enjoy the game and manage to save some cats.